Inside Carolina Live. Hope that you are ready for today's show. Inside Carolina Live. I'm Joey Powell. Hope that you are ready for today's show. With me is Denora Searcy.
Hey, man.
Turn the volume down, bro. What are you doing? This is why we can't have nice things. Not even into the intro, and my man's already just ruined everything.
My bad. I'm sitting there like, where's it coming from? My own computer. It's all right, you know.
Oh, what are we doing right now? Like,
At least we know you sound good.
What is happening?
Absolutely. You sound perfect, dude. You know. Yeah.
It's quality control.
Hey,
it's
Evan.
fine.
Hey,
What's going on?
Doris. What's happening, guys?
What's up, big guy? What's up, everybody?
Oh, I'm still sitting there. You over there messing up the audio, and I'm sitting here trying to get the TV right for YouTube. There's a game today. North Carolina's playing at Florida State. Kicking off at about 3:30 on the ACC Network. We will take you right up until 2:30, then we'll hand it off to the guys at the Tar Heel Radio Network. But, fellas, I saw a game last week that I didn't expect to see. And this week, I have no idea what to expect. I think the first thing that jumps out at me is that North Carolina's defense played complimentary football with its offense last week.
Absolutely.
And I don't know how to rationalize in my brain the bad that I've seen this team put on tape this year, but also the good that they put on tape last week. Denoris, help me make sense out of all that from last week, please, sir. No pressure.
It's kind of like a needed to be done. It's like a finally we put everything together, all three phases. It's a great confidence booster, especially being on the roads and it's being UVA, a team that we have had problems with forever. Yeah. So that rivalry goes back for a while. So be able to go up there and get a win. That's a talented team. They were just had a lot of injuries, but you still got to show up and play. So the guys on defense, especially turning it up that front four, were getting that kind of pressure on the QB and making him rattle and causing chaos and turnovers. That's what you need for a defense, especially on the road. Take the crowd out of it. You can hear more Tar Heel fans in the crowd yelling than you could UVA fans. So that was a good thing.
That was fun. Evan, what was your major, I guess, distillation from last week? Was it North Carolina finally putting together a full performance? Was it maybe they capitalized on some of the adversity they'd had to deal with, or was it just Virginia not knowing what to handle or not knowing how to handle a North Carolina team that came out and showed a little bit of moxie early on?
I think you just saw for the first time all year a North Carolina team that didn't make any mistakes. It was their first game, I feel like, all year where you could say on both sides of the ball they played pretty clean, minus, I guess, the busted coverage you had there at the end that led up that big touchdown for UVA. Like, full disclosure, I was at the App State football game, which started at 1 p.m. last weekend. Mm-hmm. And I didn't have service on my phone. So I didn't know the score of the game unless it was like during a TV timeout. And they would flash scores from out of town and they would show stuff. So I remember throughout the game, I was like, okay, I saw it was 10-6. I was like, okay, yeah, it's going about how you think it would. Give me a close game. About 30 minutes later, 24-6, I'm like, whoa,
Right.
Whoa. I'm like, okay, but it's
swing.
the Duke game, UVA will probably come back and make it close. And I think the next score update I saw was the 38-6. I was like, whoa. So, but luckily that night I got to watch through it again. And yeah, I think you just saw a team that used the bye week really well. I think that's something that, people can't forget is we saw how good teams were against UNC off the bye week, namely like a James Madison early in the season. You saw a team that in UNC that looked healthy, refreshed. If we're talking about some of their big playmakers, Cayman Rucker looked healthy again for the first time since probably the season opener.
Absolutely.
And
he showed.
And he showed it. And you really just saw a complete performance, like you said, Joey, for the first time all year. Maybe if you want to count the Minnesota game in there, but you could argue that the offense kind of lagged during that game. Last week was, peak, I could say, for this team of, the level of play that they had for the whole game.
Is it more frustrating that we finally saw North Carolina put that together last week, or was it more of a relief? Like, Denoris, I think the first thing you see is you want to get frustrated. Like, where the hell has that been?
Right.
But then also, okay, maybe they're onto something now.
Right. Yeah. You would be frustrated in the beginning. Again, we had to get the skid where we lost four straight games. So you as a fan, where was that this whole time? But you also got to remember we went through three quarterbacks. So we had to find the right chemistry. Who can man the helm, who can be that leader who could consistently get the ball into the playmakers' hands. And it took a little minute to get there, but Jacoby has shown that he could be consistent in this offense. The guys trust him, and they're starting to make more explosive plays. Like that one explosive play, the JJ that was was it the jailbreak screen, I believe?
Yeah,
they took to the house.
Yeah,
the
fact they had some blocks in front of
absolutely,
that too.
absolutely. I mean, so you see more and more confidence in the teams coming together. Now they know that JJ is, not JJ, Jacoby is the guy. He could get the job done for sure.
I want to ask you the same thing, Evan. Are you more frustrated that North Carolina is finally putting it together, or do you feel like, well, maybe there's something to be excited for now?
I think it could be a little bit of both. I think there is something to be excited for, just because, again, and you can't not look at this loss, but if in reality, if you do take out that James Madison loss, the context of the season changes drastically. Because the Duke game, they kind of let off their foot off the gas. Pitt and Georgia Tech are both good teams, and teams that I say are better than this UNC team. I think last week, you just saw a team that, and people got to think that team had an opportunity just to essentially shut it down to an extent.
Right.
You know, they're 3-4. Any ACC championship, that stuff's way out of the picture. That team could have shut it down, and they didn't.
Absolutely.
And not only did they not shut it down, they actually put together their best performance of the season. So I think that is something that you can take as a positive of the mental fortitude of that locker room of this team. When you have your leaders like a J.J. Jones, a Jacoby Criswell, a Cayman Rucker, those older guys who are like, hey, this is, my last year of college football. Obviously, Jacoby can come back, but they don't want this season to end, how it maybe looked like it could have been during that 4-game streak. So I think that is something positive you can take away from this team is knowing that, maybe these dudes have some moxie in them that maybe some people were questioning during that 4-game losing streak.
And it's an emotional season. So, with the loss of a close friend and a teammate, I know, like you said, those seniors, I wouldn't want to go out like that. I know the ACC championship may be a long shot for this point, but you still have a chance to get to a bowl game in the season with a win. Bowl game gives you opportunity to play one more time with your teammates before you leave and step out of here. You still have a lot to fight for. If I'm a senior for sure, I want to finish strong in the last time I know I'm gonna be wearing Carolina blue. I got to finish strong.
So I think one of the things as we turn towards this week with Florida State at Tallahassee, that's a team that everybody predicted to win the league this year.
Yeah,
and they struggled early on against Georgia Tech, and I think that knocked them back a little bit. But I see a talented team with an absolute garbage record that just can't seem to put it together. Absolutely. And I don't know how you prep your team for that this week, but I got to say, I don't think North Carolina can take anything for granted at this point, because you saw what happened against, y'all mentioned it already, James Madison. We hate to keep going back to that, but this team cannot overlook anyone. I don't care what their record says. They've proven that they cannot overlook anyone.
And they should.
Evan, when you're kind of sizing up this Florida State matchup, do you think Florida State's as bad as their record? I know the old adage, and Tommy likes to say it, you are what your record says you are. I don't think that's wrong, but I also think that the talent that everybody expected Florida State to have this year is still on the roster for the most part.
Yeah, it's a talented team. It has really good pieces. It's just a bad team. You can have really talented pieces and be a really bad team. Sometimes it just doesn't work, whether it's a chemistry thing, a coaching thing. I don't think they're as bad as the one win. I think if they maybe had some of the ACC opponents UNC had on its schedule, they might have, another win or two. You got to remember, this is a Florida State team that, had to go play at Miami, had to lose, played home against Clemson. Those are teams UNC hasn't had to play this year. And those are, top of the teams in the league.
Right.
With this Florida State team, I think I'm really interested to see what their mental fortitude is, because they just lost last weekend at Miami, and everyone knows that's
in-state rivalry.
One of the two big games. It's that in Florida. So, you're talking about a 1-7 Florida State team that, like you said, everyone had penciled in essentially to be playing in Charlotte for the ACC championship game coming into the season and being a legitimate contender in the college football playoff. What is their level of want to focus for this type of game? I don't know. Does a Florida State team look at UNC and say, let's get up for that? Maybe not. I don't know.
That's a tough call.
But again, this is a team that is not your typical one-win kind of team. This isn't a team that's lacks talent, like I don't know, maybe a Stanford or something like that, who is at the bottom of the league. this is a team that has plenty of talent and plenty of pieces to where, like you said, UNC can't go in and overlook this team, and they shouldn't. I mean, it's Florida State. They still have the spears on the side of their helmets.
Right.
This is something that, this is a game that I think means a lot to a lot of people on different aspects, and we'll probably get into that later in the show.
Denores, I mean, are you, again, I know playing the NFL, everybody's getting paid, right?
Right.
And maybe everybody's getting paid in college now too. But I would ask, I mean, how do you keep your focus in a game like this where it's, North Carolina is for every reason should be feeling better about themselves, but this team has zero reason to kind of make any sort of assumptions, especially walking into somebody else's stadium.
Right. Well, if I'm Florida State, I know we won at 7, but if I'm a senior, I'm trying to finish strong. I'm still fighting for something, opportunity to play at the next level. This is like Florida State is a very talented team. Record doesn't show. Only thing I seen close to this, I think it was like 2012 in the NFL. Kansas City was like 2-14, but they had 9 Pro Bowlers that year.
Yeah.
And I was like, how you 2-14 and have 9 Pro Bowlers?
How does that work?
That was insane.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I think the following year, that was when Andy Reid came on the scene after that season. But yeah, that's the only thing I can equate that to with the level of 4- and 5-star athletes they had brought in, and level 4- and 5-star athletes that had transferred. Like you had guys that transferred from like UGA and whatnot to come play at Florida State, and the record doesn't show for that. So again, we don't know if that's a chemistry thing. That's something that have to do with the coaches or whatnot. But you still have something to fight for. Every time you go out there and play, you got a chance to prove yourself. Whether you want to prove draft stock, you want to prove that you can still be here. Maybe you want to put something good on tape before you enter the portal or something like that. Yeah. So there's plenty of opportunities, and there's plenty of things to continue to fight for and push for. I know you want to ultimately get the win as well, but it could be hard to push through when you're 1-7. So you gotta stack things that make you ready to play. And if it's me, every chance I get the chance to go out there and suit up, I'm gonna give it everything I got, no matter the record.
Let's talk about stacking good for a little bit. I mean, you've heard Mac Brown's been saying that since all the way back in kind of fall camp about how this team needed to stack good performances.
Right.
I think it's even more important right now since, the season did not start the way that they will. The second quarter of the season did not go the way that they wanted it to. Mac has said all year that he thought this team would be better in the back half, independent of what the records were. There's a real chance that they could build off of what they did last week. I think they found some things on both sides of the ball. Evan, I don't want to get into your coach speak segment, which we'll hear next, but what about kind of preparation do you think North Carolina can take from the Virginia game to be able to replicate or be able to duplicate again today in Tallahassee?
I think they just really did a good job of capitalizing on the turnovers that the defense had. I mean, obviously the one that directly resulted in a touchdown with Javari is one kind of play.
Right.
But even the pick from Cayman, I mean, they responded to that and scored a touchdown. And I think at the beginning of the game, the offense maybe took a couple drives to get its footing going. I remember that first drive, it was kind of like, uh-oh, here we go again, kind of a thing. You
were not the only one that thought that.
Right.
But I think just this team can obviously lean on Amari and Hampton, and that's going to be an interesting dynamic because the strength of this Florida State team is their defensive front. It's a nasty,
which is crazy because they suck at stopping the run.
Yeah, the numbers don't back up anything. It was incredible writing my opponent preview this week and just looking through the numbers of this Florida State team. It's baffling just how
none of it makes sense.
It doesn't. It really does not, and I don't know if.
Well, but if you're a UNC fan, that scares you.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It certainly should. I mean, this is a game that has the makings of this is another lay an egg type of game. This is, think the last time these two teams played, it was a 1-win Florida State team that came into Kenan Stadium and ran wild all over the
And North Carolina was favored by double figures.
And yes. And then the time before that, you had a top 5 UNC team going into Tallahassee, and they were down 31-7.5.
Yep.
So, I mean,
nothing makes sense anymore.
Exactly.
That's why you play the game. Anything can happen.
But in terms of what they did last week and what they can replicate this week, it was leaning on Amari and Hampton. I think you saw the offensive playbook kind of shrink in terms of just being simple, doing what you were good at, using play action when it was time to do that, relying on Amari and going under center a little bit more, which I liked. I think that keeps teams guessing because are you going to give a halfback dive or are you going to do a quick pitch out to Amari? And I think, are you going to do a QB sneak with your 230-pound quarterback? I mean, I think that keeps a lot of teams guessing. So I think you saw that team get more comfortable with its pieces. And again, I mean, I hate to harp on this point, but that's what a bye week can do.
Yeah.
When you have the opportunity to self-scout, get healthy, figure out who you are, I think that was really valuable for this
throw some new wrinkles in there, like you said, because with them being under center and not in the gun all the time, it makes you, like you say, it makes the defense defend more of the field. You got to cover more now because it's different plays that can come out of each formation. So now you got to account for. You got to play. Your defensive scheme has to be more broadened because their playbook is open more.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that North Carolina had too last week was they had their whole offensive line healthy.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, most of those guys, and again, bye week helps a lot of stuff, especially when you're nursing little niggles. Right. When you've got things that are just bothering you a little bit, you get that free week. All of a sudden, you're able to get some extra treatment, give some other guys some reps in practice, and actually let stuff heal rather than trying to play through the pain.
Absolutely.
And I think what you saw last week with the offense was they kept Jacoby Criswell clean.
Yeah.
And I think that's something where, like you said, Evan, the math doesn't math for Florida State, but if you look at them getting off the bus, they still have some dudes.
Absolutely.
And I think that if that offensive line today can kind of get a little bit of what they felt last week. I think they felt good last week. And I mean, even if you look towards what they were doing in the second half of the game, they were dictating play. They were getting to second levels. You had guys, you're absolutely getting ahead to block downfield, which is amazing because it's not something that we've seen a lot.
And taking pride of getting down the field blocking. The extra blocking at the spring, like those extra blocks they was making that sprung JJ on that one play.
Well, that, and there was another play too where I saw 6 foot whatever 400-pound Howard Sampson 15 yards downfield blocking for a runner,
and you love to see that. You don't
love to see it if you're a DB.
No, I don't want to see that, but I love to see my teammate get out there and steamroll opponent like that for sure.
I mean, it's got to be a special kind of. You can't be wearing white pants when you see that large of a human coming with a full head of steam coming around that corner.
It's even harder now because they took the cut block out for defense. Yeah. Like defensive players couldn't.
You used to cut them down. You can't cut them down.
I sure did. I took out plenty of knees. I'm like, I'm gonna create a pile. You're not hitting me like that.
That's a huge human coming at full speed. All right.
And he mad.
Absolutely. Well, he's also happy that he's actually got some free space to run with. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll be right back. We got plenty to talk about today. Evan's got some coach speak for us to analyze. We'll talk with Jason Staples at the end of this hour, which is going to be a really, really fun segment because, as you know, Staples played at Florida State. He does a lot of coverage of them as well. So there's going to be plenty of things to dissect with him. Second hour, we'll have our IC Takeover segment, give somebody a nice $50 gift card to Johnny T-shirt, our friends over there. But we're going to take a quick break right now. We'll be right back. Here's some coach speak from Evan and what we heard from the coaches this week. We'll try to analyze that for you. Denora Searcy's here. Evan Rogers is here. AJ's on the board. I am Joey Powell. This is Inside Carolina Live on 97.9 The Hill, WCHL.
Yeah.
Get your cholo face on, Evan. Is that your cholo face?
Yeah.
You have no idea who this
He
is.
has no
idea.
clue. No clue.
Inside Carolina Live, Evan Rogers is here to not know things with us. I'm Joey Powell. Denora Searcy is just to my left. If you're watching this on YouTube, he's to my left. He would be to your right. Tar Heels heading into Tallahassee today, which we didn't even bring it up in the first segment, really, but Mac Brown has never beaten his alma mater. And I think that's probably it's crossed the minds of a lot of fans. I doubt Mac has said anything about it. But I want to go to Evan to give us a little bit of coach speak from this week and see what we can kind of pull out of this game and try to decide whether or not it's got a little bit of extra gravy on it because of Mac's connection to that program.
Yeah, this week was a good week. It's always fascinating how different a press conference can go. Mac Brown after a win versus Mac Brown after a loss. But that's neither here nor there. I thought about going the complacency route, but we kind of hit that during the week on press coverage. So I really wanted to dive into what Mac talked about with the defense, and specifically Cayman Rucker. And we kind of were talking about it before we went live today, just the impact that Cayman had. And Mac brought him up pretty quickly in his opening comments with this.
Defensively, we stepped up like we did against Minnesota. We stopped the run, dominated the game, and we've got to replicate that defense moving forward instead of some of the defense we've seen for the last 2 weeks. We had 10 sacks, had 15 on the year coming into this game. So that led to 12.5 tackles for loss. It's the most we've had since the 2000 game with Wake Forest. We forced 2 turnovers. One of them was a touchdown, and the other one led to a touchdown, the Cayman Rucker interception that was pressure on the quarterback by Powell. And limited explosives. Did really, really well against them on 3rd and 4th downs because we stopped the run. Forced 2 field goals in red zone, the first one from the 1. And forced 2 field goals out of their 3 trips. Cayman Rucker being back, defensive player of the game, gives us leadership, gives us a pass rush, 8 tackles, 3 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, a pressure and an interception that again led to a short field and a touchdown.
Just video game numbers.
Right.
No.
I mean,
what the hell we
Video
all
game
about
numbers.
that's a type of
That's what you do with your creative player.
yeah. I mean that's a type of performance I would want in one of my fantasy leagues where you actually have to start defensive players and you can actually get individual stats from those guys. But it made me think about a moment during the James Madison game in that debacle, and I remember, Cayman obviously was not playing that game, and it was kind of like a rah-rah moment, if you want to call it that. I think it maybe was in the second quarter when it was really falling apart. And I saw Cayman call all the defensive guys over, and he's in the middle, and he is just chewing them out. I mean, just for probably upwards of 3 to 4 minutes. And obviously that didn't change anything in that game. And I wonder how much more impactful is it to have a guy like that actually be on the field and doing it? Because it's one thing to have that kind of guy chew your ass out on the sideline and be like, you need to get your act together. But at the end of the day, he can't go out there with you.
Right.
He can't show you how it's done. He can't, lead by example actually on the field. Like, I feel like only so much can be taken when a guy is saying it from the sideline. Once you're actually out there in live action, I feel like that kind of maybe is what you saw in terms of just the overall play of that defense get lifted, the rising tide kind of thing. Right.
But at the end of the day, even if he wasn't playing, he's the type of player that you know what you're going to get if he's out there. Right. So yes, if he's addressing us as a team, some people may see it as, well, you can't be out here to show us. But if you play with Cayman and you know who he is and the type of player he is, well, he's not out here, but I know if he was out here, what he's speaking, he'll practice what he's preaching if he's playing. And then, like you said, like his first game back, they had him on pitch count, but when they let him run wild after that bye week, you saw the type of player that he is. So. Yeah, and like you said, they knew their attitude was going to get lifted a little bit more, knowing he's back there on the field. I mean, he's back on the field with the guys. It takes the pressure out of the rest of the guys on front because half of the O-line is going to be looking at him. So you're going to get your one-on-one matchups and whatnot. You know what I'm saying? So that's why early in the game you saw a lot more guys getting pressure on the QB because the opposing team knowing Cayman is going to play more reps. Now we have to watch him more. You know what I'm saying? So. It allowed the other defensive linemen to eat. It allowed other guys on the defense to make plays. So then when the game started getting out of hand, and it's like now we got to account for everybody. Now Cayman was able to just peel his ears back because he know he's going to have his one-on-ones now because everybody's hot. Mm-hmm. Everybody's hot is in a groove. So now I can get my opportunities at making plays, and that's what he did. So he's a proven leader that whether he's playing or not, if Cayman says something to me on the sideline, I would listen to him because he's a captain. That's just being honest because I know that's the type of player. That's the type of player he is.
Yeah.
He's talking the talk, but I also know if Cayman was out here with us, he's going to walk the walk as well. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And like he's shown me the past 3 years I have played with him, so I know what I'm gonna get. So but especially having him on the field with me, that's like one side I don't have to worry about. Yeah. Like Cayman got that. I'm gonna cover the rest of the field because I know he has this side. You know what I'm saying? So it's a big lift.
A big way to show that was Des Evans got a sack last week.
Yeah,
and it's because they can no longer double team his side with Cayman Rucker being back.
Thank you.
And you saw Bo Atkinson had 2 sacks last week. So that's the same position as Evans. He's just 2 different guys playing the same position, and that's because you can no longer shift your chip or your pass pro help to that side because Rucker's back.
He's balanced.
I mean, Rucker had a couple of awards come in this past week, but I think the biggest thing, and we talked about it before the show, so for the folks that are listening to us now, the biggest thing that jumps out at me is his veteran leadership was in the interception he got because that was strictly based on watching film. If you watch the way he dropped into coverage and read Calandria's eyes, absolutely. I mean, that's literally just a guy covering the flat, knowing where he wants to go because he's seen it repped on tape so many times.
And he trusted it.
And absolutely trusted his gut, trusted what he's seen on tape, and knew what that his preparation was set properly. So when you have a guy like that, like you said, D, was he's going to hold everybody else to his standard, if not higher. And you know that if he says it, he's going to go out and do it. I think that's the type of unquantifiable stuff. Again, you'll see the interception show up in the stat sheet, but you won't see the fact that you had Atkinson and Evans getting numbers because Rucker's back. Yep. You saw the fact that, I haven't gone back and counted anything from the all 22s. But I felt like they also did not run at him very often. No. Most of their runs went to the left side of the field, and that's just I don't know that that's again something that will show up in a lot of post game reports. But if you watch it, you know that's exactly what's happening because we know that Rucker was back and he was off his leash a little bit.
Absolutely.
What else you got, Evan?
Well, and on that point, in the 2 games that Rucker's healthy, this UNC team has 15 sacks in those 2 games.
You think that might have something to do with it?
Right. Like, just from the standpoint of obviously him being there, but getting sacks. But like you said, them having to now shift their protections and opening up those creases for guys like Bo Atkinson and guys like Des Evans. I mean, 10 sacks in one game.
That's crazy.
Well, so we talked about this, and I'm going to ask Staples about it a little bit later, but like 10 sacks. Okay, yes, Virginia was playing with some second, third string guys and guys out of position. Okay, that's fine.
Don't matter.
But all of them, every single one of them, wasn't garbage because of that. Some of it was because dudes were just beating the guy in front of them.
Hey man,
one came on a 3-man pressure.
They on a scholarship. They on a scholarship right there. Okay, that's all I need. Just like in the NFL, you get paid. I don't care who out there. Get the job done.
Cashing, ain't it?
Exactly. Yeah. If you on scholarship, you getting paid.
It was
bow up. 10 sacks is 10 sacks. I don't care unless now if you're playing against a high school team, come on now. But this still Division 1 is Division 1. You know, so whoever's out there, you on scholarship, you time to play. Get the job done.
And the funny thing was, it felt like at the end of that game, guys were literally like trying to beat each other to the quarterback.
Absolutely.
Like, dude, literally is like, all right, can I beat my own line mates to the quarterback?
Exactly. Because right they're going back to the sideline like, dude, I got one move I'm putting on him, and he has no answer for it. Like, I'm going to get there again. You know what I'm saying? Like, so.
No, it was great. And second quote coming up here, it's just another came on thing. I think just his impact was so important. I mean, you saw in that Georgia Tech game, he was not healthy.
No.
You see it if you watch the great breakdown that Jason Staples does on that big run play. You can see he's not 100%, and that bye week was super important for him. And maybe that limp or that struggle he had could have just been a mental hurdle. Mm-hmm. It may not even been a physical thing per se. I mean, he was cleared to play. But yeah, Mac had this to say about Cameron.
Yeah, probably not. If you think he is one of the best players in college football. I mean, he was the fourth leading rusher or pressuring quarterbacks last year in the country. And then he's so positive and he's upbeat and he's so confident. And you take that away, and all of a sudden you're playing two young ones in this place. Immediately, you've lost a lot of who you are. And then when you have Des Evans on one side and him on the other side, it's hard to chip or double team when you've got two of them. So then you lose one, and then say, okay, let's put extra help over here with 10, because these young ones are not there yet. I mean, Saturday he was such an impact that he changed the game with his performance and helped the others be one-on-one, and then it gave them opportunities to get there, which is harder to do without him there. So yes, he's a total impact player for us.
I should have clarified at the beginning of that quote when Max says probably not. Someone asked him, essentially, can you quantify just how important he is to this team? And Mac was like, well, I mean, I don't know if I even can. Like, I mean, it's so, it's just a massive piece, and it's something that I think is huge for this defense moving forward. You kind of forgot that on defense, you don't really think one player can necessarily change a game like maybe on offense. Like, if you don't have your star quarterback, people be like, oh yeah, it makes sense. Like, you're going to struggle. Right. Sometimes people don't realize that for defense. Like, if you take your best edge rusher away, that can be huge for a whole defense. Yeah.
Well, it's not like he's just their best edge rusher.
Yeah.
He's one of the best edge rushers in the country.
Right.
Yeah. That's so it's not like I'm just driving on a spare here.
Not just on the team.
Right.
so to give that an extra level, yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think a lot of times people overlook the fact that the kid that was replacing him, I shouldn't say kid, the young man that was replacing him was a redshirt freshman. Right. So again, you're going from, that's not a knock on his backup. That's a knock on the fact that you're not only missing a player, you're missing a potential All-American, a guy that got preseason honors. That is one of the best at his position across this great United States of America. Denoris, I would ask you, you guys had so much depth on your lines when you were in Chapel Hill.
Right.
Did you ever have a guy that was that much of a difference maker as Rucker is? Because I think Evan's on to something. And
Robert
Max,
Quinn.
Really?
I mean, that's the first time I seen Cayman Rucker get 3 sacks in the game. I saw Robert Quinn do it 3-4 times. So I mean, like you said, but I played behind like incredible depth. Like we had 4 guys that'll start off, and then when we brought the next 4 guys in, there was no drop.
You guys didn't have the drop off.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And then a lot of the times we didn't even have the pressure because our guys up front would get there. Now we played the more athletic quarterbacks, like we would go against Tyrod Taylor, who could scramble around, Russell Wilson when he was in NC State, who could run around. Yeah, we had to send more guys because he was able to create and extend plays. But a lot of times we just had to stay at coverage and just play the ball. We knew, especially if we knew our defensive line was winning like that consistently, or it was going to be times where they was going to get there. We knew the ball had to come out quick. That allowed us on the back end to like jump routes and attack the ball because we knew the ball was coming. So,
that's the other thing. Last week you saw North Carolina's defensive backs play a fairly clean game.
Right.
Mac talked about explosives. They had the one in the fourth quarter, which was a bad read by the DB, but you can't be but so mad about that. And part of that was because they weren't having to be on an island for so long.
Right.
When you've got guys that when you've got blitzes that are hitting that often, or when you've got guys, and I will fully say I love to see them mugging the A-gap last week right over top of center because they recognized the UVA was on a backup center and the center of their line was going to be where they got a lot of pressure.
Right.
They started mugging that A-gap and just UVA struggled to hand that off the entire game. And so then when they started cheating up the middle, then you started seeing things come off the edge, and that's what I think people wanted to see from Jeff Collins from the jump this year. So I think it should be exciting for folks to see that he's got that in his bag. All right. Tar Heels heading down to Tallahassee. We've got Jason Staples coming up right after this break. We're going to talk with Staples a little bit about what he expects to see because, again, he follows Florida State heavily, like hosts some podcasts and stuff for them as well. So he's probably got a unique perspective that you can't find anywhere else, and he's going to talk about both teams today in this next segment. Stick around. This is Inside Carolina Live on 97.9 The Hill, WCHL. Evan, you got to get up to get down.
Story of my life.
If you've never
do
been
not get
down,
up-
how you gonna get on up?
If you do not get up, you cannot get down. Inside Carolina Live, I'm Joey Powell. We are getting you ready for Tar Heels today in Tallahassee, in a place that has been a bit of a house of horrors. But they've had some of their own horrors this season, and nobody better to talk about that with than Mr. Jason Staples.
I am the smartest man alive!
Doc, how you doing, man? I appreciate you joining us on a beautiful Saturday.
Oh, I'm doing great. It is truly a beautiful Saturday. Though, of course, I would wish it was about 20 degrees warmer, but climate change isn't moving at the pace that all of us would want.
Zing! Jason, listen, man. I know that it's not been fun to cover Florida State this year, or maybe it has. Maybe you're a glutton for punishment. But I want to ask you specifically. Looking at North Carolina's performance last week, we talked about it a bit in the first segment about, is this something that North Carolina can build on? And more importantly, I want to ask you, were there some things that North Carolina put on tape last week that you feel like they can use against a Florida State team that's still trying to kind of find their rudder a little bit?
Well, I mean, I don't think North Carolina put a whole lot on tape last week that isn't what they've shown at different points this year already. The biggest difference is that they were able to get some stops, specifically a couple turnovers that changed that game, and then managed to get the ball in the end zone, doing a lot of the same stuff that they did earlier in the year, with the exception that they hit some big plays in the pass game. So, I mean, if there was anything I would say that they did last week that they haven't really done that much. I mean, you think about the long vertical route that J.J. Jones caught in the end zone, some of those things. That's the stuff that they hadn't done. And frankly, that's the stuff that's going to be hardest to do against this Florida State team. I mean, the place where they're the strongest is in the secondary and giving up big plays and that sort of thing. What Florida State has struggled with is stuff that Carolina has actually done pretty well all year, offensively at least, and they've struggled to stop the run and run between the tackles. And, roughly 70% of Omarion Hampton's 1,000 yards have come between the tackles in the A and the B gaps. And, that's going to really be where the rubber meets the road in this game. That Carolina's going to hand it off to Hampton, and Florida State's going to have to try to stop him in that phone booth area. And, the success or failure of that is going to determine a lot of where this game goes.
Jason, you talked about on the game plan just the pressure rate that this Florida State offensive line was allowing. And, UNC obviously is coming off that 10-sack performance last week. I guess from that, how much of those 10 sacks, if you're UNC, can you take away from, being quote-unquote real, for better, lack of a better word, or maybe the UVA injuries that play into that, and how can that maybe relate into today's game?
Well, I mean, the UVA injuries certainly played into it, but they were all real sacks. I mean, you had guys winning matchups. You had a couple busts on the offensive line and all of that. But Florida State has been very generous in those respects all season up front. So all of those things are plausible in terms of this week, in terms of getting pressure and all of that. And the best thing for Carolina in that respect is that Carolina was able to get pressure most of the game, pretty much all the game against Virginia, while rushing 4. And they rushed 4 while dropping, a defensive lineman, often dropped Cayman Rucker, actually. They rushed 4 most of that game and still got pressure. Well, that's what you need to do against Florida State. That's a team that the danger for Carolina coming into this game is that Florida State hits some big plays. They've not made a bunch of big plays this year, but they do have some speed on that offense. They do have some guys who, if they ever hang on to the football, are capable of going. What Carolina can't do is get locked into the wrong one-on-one matchup and let a guy run by him. Because this is a Florida State offense that if they've been asked, and they've been asked a lot this year, whenever they've been asked to execute down the field and matriculate the ball down the field, they've consistently shown they can't do it. And that's what Carolina needs to do. Now, the pressure part of that is a big part of that, but it's just flat out winning up front. And they did win up front a bunch against Virginia. I do think, physically speaking, Florida State is probably stronger up front than Virginia is, but the overall quality of the offensive line on the season has not been any better than what Virginia's been putting out there either.
Jason, I saw. I think I saw Chip Lindsey getting comfortable as the game went on last week. And I don't know that we've seen that many times since he's been UNC's offensive coordinator, in a sense that he found out what was working. He was able to kind of spam that a little bit. And you did a great breakdown on it this week on Inside Carolina. I loved when they went tight in that formation on 4th and 1, got under center and pitched the ball outside. That to me showed an offensive coordinator that was not only a little bit in his bag, but he knew exactly what to call and when to call it. And I don't know that we've been able to see that sort of confidence and that sort of hit rate from Chip Lindsey this year. Do you feel like there's something that maybe he stumbled on last week against Virginia that that is something that he might be able to use? Because again, I think your point is great about just run the ball, don't get too creative. But do you think he found a couple of things in tunnel screens, in those unique formations that might actually be something they can hang their hats on?
I don't think it's something they can hang their hats on. I do think Virginia, just personnel-wise, gives you some advantages. Carolina had some advantages on the outside against Virginia's secondary that, they're not going to have this week. The one place where Florida State is really strong is at the outside corners, really all 3 corners. They can single cover a lot of teams. And so asking for a comparable, like, let's just throw it on the edge and win out there, that stuff's going to be harder. Now, FSU's not been great in terms of tackling, so maybe, that can help. But I think that was much more of what Virginia presented and Lindsey feeling comfortable that he had stuff that could beat what they were bringing to the table. And it sure helps when your quarterback gets comfortable. I think what we saw last week was really the quarterback. Criswell looked more comfortable than he has most of the season, partly because he was better protected. Virginia didn't pressure him as much as he's been pressured most of this season. But they got it out quickly. They were, like you said, they were able to go on some screens and things like that. But that was partly a byproduct of Virginia needing to blitz to bring pressure. And they hit a couple of those screens. They hit the pressure right in the teeth. You had a corner blitz, and you happen on a corner blitz to call a jailbreak wide receiver screen. That's great. That's exactly what you want. And they hit it right. And at that point, you've got one fewer guy you have to block out there. I don't think that's likely to be the kind of thing you're going to see as much of this week. You're going to see, that Florida State team plays a lot of base cover 7, and they just play base cover 7. They don't have to blitz as much for pressure as a lot of teams, because they do have some guys that can rush the passer. And just in terms of how they call the defense, they just run a lot of base cover 7, and then from there they'll shift around a little bit. But there's a lot more just comfort in our guys can beat your guys. Now, the problem for them this year has been when they stay in that base cover 7, which requires those safeties to trigger well against the run and recognize when it's a run and all of that and get downhill and make tackles. They've struggled to stop the run out of that because they go light box to go cover 7. And when you're light in the box, you got to have guys that trigger well, and you got to have guys that win up front against the pass. You got to have guys that are against the run. You got to have guys that are stopping the run out of that light box, and they've not done that. And that's why I think this game really does come down to it's a offensive line and Omarion Hampton game for North Carolina up front to a large extent, because that's what Florida State struggled to stop. And that's what North Carolina's done best. So is Carolina's best good enough to beat Florida State's weakness thus far this year? And if so, then things bode well. If not, well, if your best isn't beating what they haven't done well stopping, then that's not a good sign for the rest of the game.
We're talking with Jason Staples here on Inside Carolina Live.
What up, Jace? This is Noles. Quick question. You mentioned on it a little bit earlier, just a few moments ago. With the amount of talent that's on this Florida State defense, what do you think was the big issue or reasoning for the 1-7 record so far this season?
I think it's a team that really lacks leadership. You watch that team, and they've felt very rudderless at times, and they're a team that you have a lot of. You know how this works. I mean, you've been on teams where little mistakes just keep coming up on this or that play that just submarine what you're doing, and then you're on another team that may not be as talented, may not be as good, but those guys everybody does their job, and everybody trusts each other.
Facts.
And this is a Florida State team that you've gotten a sense watching them at different points. They just don't trust each other. Now, at the same point, last week against Miami, that defense played well for three plus quarters before they wore down. There have been signs of them playing at that level, but I think the biggest thing has been just a general lack of leadership and lack of strain on the defensive side. And then on the offensive side, it's been a massive lack of leadership. And then they just have not had the same kind of playmakers that they had the last few years where, good luck single covering Johnny Wilson and Keon Coleman last year. Good luck. You get a one-on-one matchup against Trey Benson in the open field. That guy's taking it to the house. There's a great screenshot online right now of a 3rd and 1 from last week's game against Miami, where Florida State running back has probably a 6-yard hole as he's hitting the C gap, or really the D gap, on a little sweep, and everything's blocked up. And if he turns it up and hits the gas, that should at minimum be maybe 20-yard gain, 30-yard gain, and probably score. And last year with Benson, it certainly scores. And it was 3rd and 1, and he didn't get it. And that's kind of what's been happening is they just have not had the ability to make plays on the offensive side, and then that's meant that the defense has had to kind of be perfect, and those guys defensively have not been that. And then the final thing is up front, they've got a couple defensive tackles who are good players, and they're going to be pros. I mean, they're going to be top 3 round draft picks almost certainly. But the big issue that you're going to have is that those guys have not had as cohesive. They've not been as cohesive up front with the outside guys against the run. The last couple of years, Florida State had Jared Verse, and then before that, Jermaine Johnson at the edge. And those guys were elite. They were elite, stopping the run, not just as pass rushers. So when they went light box, they had 2 defensive tackles that were winning on the inside, and then that third guy on the outside was kicking tail on the outside against the run. And they got used to that, I think, schematically, and they're still running a lot of the same stuff with that light box, but the difference is that teams are taking advantage of those edge guys, and they're getting that B gap where that guy's just not collapsing it down, or they're having that guy come in, duck into the B gap, and then they're just coming around that C gap on him, and the backers are a little bit late triggering, and now all of a sudden, instead of last year, what's a 2-yard gain or a loss, you're looking at a 5-6-yard gain, and that's a huge difference. So, I mean, you lose Jared Verse, it's going to cost you. And, we've all seen how good Jared Verse has been in the NFL this year. And, I think the impact that he played last year, I said it last year going into the bowl game, people did not appreciate the level of dominance that he had because of how much they asked him to do. And they're asking their same guys to do it now. And those guys aren't Jared Verse. Jared Verse is not walking through that door.
Last question for Jason Staples here on Inside Carolina Live. Doc, North Carolina fans never feel comfortable playing against the Seminoles. And I think part of that's history, part of that's Mac's issues with them, part of that's some of the ways in which they've lost over the years. Is there any reason today that North Carolina should not just be able to run the ball, salt the game away, not get too crazy, and get out of there with, between a 6 and a 10-point win?
Is there any reason they can't? Well, they should be able to do that. But the thing is, this is a danger. The problem with playing Florida State, and this is one of the reasons it's been a house of horrors for North Carolina for years, is you are dealing with a team that recruits and a team that does have guys that can run really, really fast. Right? You got multiple receivers out there. You got, Benson, their top receiver, who's had kind of a down year. He's a guy that ran 10.4 in the 100 meters in high school. That's really, really fast. And when you have guys that have that kind of get up and go, the possibility that that guy just gets up and goes a couple times in a given game is always there. So the real danger in this game is that Florida State is able to hit a few big plays and suddenly start feeling themselves, and then some of that talent starts to manifest and coalesce in ways that it hasn't this year. The thing is there any reason that North Carolina can't prevent that? No. If Carolina plays like they have running the football, and they play well, and they just are really solid and don't have any busts or anything stupid happen on the back end in the passing game, they should win this game, because that's just Florida State has not played well enough to be a team that's going to win that game. It's just a game where, again, the variance is pretty high, because you do have some guys on that Florida State team that, on the defensive front, you got 4 guys that are going to play in the NFL. In the secondary, you got 3 starters that are going to play in the NFL. When you have those guys, the switch can flip, and suddenly you're dealing with a problem. So this is a high variance game. Is there any reason Carolina can't win it? No. Am I willing to go out on a limb and say absolutely Carolina's going to win this game? No, because it's too high variance. You've got too many variables with players that are potentially streaky.
Smart man. Staples, we appreciate you, man. We will talk to you not next week because the Tar Heels have an open date, but we'll talk to you in 2 weeks when they do suit up again against Wake Forest. Appreciate you making time for us here on a Saturday.
It's always fun, guys.
All right, that's Jason Staples. We'll take a quick break and be back with Hour 2 on Inside Carolina Live on 97.9 The Hill, WCHL. It's Carolina Live. ATCQ. That's a Tribe Called Quest for Evan because he has no idea who any of those guys are.
Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
This is a
Back
fun
when-
game for me this
It
season
is.
where I'm just
Absolutely.
putting stuff together, trying to decide. I'm having like an Evan meter thing of
Well,
like,
it's just-
do
it's-
I think he's going to know this one?
It's not does he not know it, it's how bad does he not
How
know
bad
it.
does he not know it? Yeah,
and,
yeah.
and today has been...
It's been a fun game. I've been thoroughly enjoyed it. Just entertaining myself at this point.
do you know who Busta Rhymes is, Evan?
Yeah.
Okay. He was
Do
one
you
of,
actually know who Busta
He
Rhymes
was actually
is?
one of the original members of Tribe Called Quest.
Yeah, I think me and Thenoris are both on the same page if we're not sure if he actually knows who Busta Rhymes
Y'all
is.
going to check his credentials?
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. Yeah, he don't know.
Yeah, okay.
Inside Carolina Live, I'm Joey Powell. Evan Rogers is here, not knowing music. Denora Searcy is here to make sure Evan feels bad about such. This is a segment of the show we always like to let Denoris drive a little bit and talk about some memory lane. We throw him some softballs and let him talk about his experience and when he wore the pads and the helmet. So first things first, Searcy, I want to ask you, what kind of feelings can you have? And I don't mean on the team. I think we talked about that a little bit earlier when you saw guys competing with each other to get sacks and to get into UEA's backfield last week. But what kind of things can make people not think about that having a breakout performance like last week was for North Carolina? Where does that carry over in places that maybe you hadn't seen? Is it the training table? Is it, is it when you guys are having lunch? Is it when guys are just trying to get those last few reps in during practice over the course of the week? Where can you see that carry over and manifest?
I would say the reps in practice, because a lot of times you may have weeks in practice where I've had to we had to rerun plays, we had to do plays over because the guy missed a key or miss an assignment or anything like that. But we've had weeks where everything was clicking. Like we didn't miss a beat out on the field, and then it transitioned over to the field on the game day. I've also had weeks of practice where we struggled in practice, and then we get in the game and dominate. So I mean, but coming from a position,
drive a coach crazy,
right. It does. It drives us crazy too, though. Especially when you want to be a perfectionist, and you know what I'm saying. And you want to win, and you want to do stuff to like put your name out there, put the team out there, and such. But when you have good weeks like that, where it starts off the field, everybody goes to class, everybody's on time to meetings, everybody's to the training table on time. Everybody's in study hall. You're out there at practice. Everybody's focused, not that much talking. When you're going through things, guys are answering questions before the coaches can finish them. That shows that we're all attentive. Then when you can carry that over to the field and everything you've talked about is showing up in every formation, position, you hear signals and keys that allow you to play fast, and you can see like every aspect of the game you're dominating. Those are one of the best feelings because it's like you back on the sideline, you're looking at each other like, man, like everything is coming together. Like you know, so it's a big confidence booster. And then so when you come off a dominant performance like that as a defense, we like, man, we need to do that again. You know, do the same thing going into this week. Keep it going. You see how we play when everybody's focused and everybody's on one accord. So what we did last week to get ready for this game and dominate, we need to do it again to keep it moving forward, because consistency is going to be what keep you having those type of performances.
Is it easier to rep when it goes well?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. It's not that much talking when it goes well, but when one of those bad performances or games where we let get away, yeah, the meetings are a little bit longer on those days.
Adam Smith had a interesting story this week where he was talking about, it was I think maybe 2007, 2008, Wake Forest beat Florida State at home. And he was talking to a Wake Forest guy in the locker room, and this was not a good Florida State team. I think maybe a below 500 Florida State team. And the Wake Forest player said, yeah, but they still got them spears on their helmets.
Right, absolutely.
What is it like to play against, I kind of view, I'm not trying to get too Gen Z here, but Florida State has that aura in a way.
Too late.
They've already had it. It's always
they have. It's like a Miami. They just have that. It's like UNC in basketball.
That's
right?
one of those. Fair. That's one of those programs. When you see them, you got to play.
So what is that kind of like as a player, especially not only playing against them, but going down into their house in Tallahassee, kind of thing?
I took it as an opportunity to get better. I was a guy that wanted to go to the NFL, so I'm like, if I get out here and dominate against them, perennial program powerhouse. If I get out here, I don't care who they recruit. They got to see me today. So I took it as a chance. It's a national televised game. They have great players, but I think I'm great as well. And it's a great measuring stick. You know what I'm saying? Because if you're fortunate enough to make it to the NFL, you can play against guys from all over the place. So it's easy to get out there and prove yourself and see where you stand as a player. So it don't matter the record. Like you said, that's still Florida State is still Florida State. Like even when Miami was having their struggling years, Miami was still Miami. Like it doesn't matter. Now they may have up and down seasons, but they still recruit.
Yep.
They still get some of the best players out of the state of Florida and from around the nation. So you have to show up. I mean, if we're keeping score, I want to win. And if you step out on the field, I'm going to expect to get your best. Now, if you show me something else, then you show me something else. But on a competition ground, I'm always expecting to get that player's best for sure.
Give me an example from your career, specifically in North Carolina, where a great performance pulled somebody out of their shell. Right, because you played with some guys that had all the accolades, but you also had some guys that weren't very highly touted coming out of high school. That all of a sudden you put that great performance on tape, and now now those guys are reliable. Those guys are having an extra little pep in their step. They're actually staying around for the extra reps. You see those guys get to the meeting rooms a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
Did you have any of those situations where you guys put it all together in a great game, and then the next week you were able to rely on that guy again?
Yeah, me.
Stop.
No, I was highly recruited coming in, but also I had to wait. I had to wait my time to play.
Right.
So yeah, after my one breakout performance, the guys knew what I could do, but it was like showing everybody else what I could do.
Who were you behind? Goddard?
Yeah.
Okay.
So he was a smart guy, proven player, great.
Also not afraid to hit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I had to wait my turn, but I was such a good player. I had packages where I would come in. But when I first started getting out there fully, not gonna lie, I have a mental error, like one mental error every quarter, like because I'm still getting my feet wet and whatnot. But once I got my confidence grew and I had that one performance. I think my breakout performance was my sophomore year against West Virginia in the bowl game, and that's when I had my 10 tackles, 2 sacks, 3 tackles for loss. Yeah.
How much did that suck that y'all don't have a game the next week?
I didn't care. Like, you know what I'm saying? That was like my second start, and then and I did such a great job. It just boosted my confidence going into the next season, and I came back attacking. I took the off season and worked my tail off even more, studied more, was more. Showed up early, met with coach when we didn't have meetings. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So when we rolled out there that next season, it was on. The guys already knew they could count on me from the performance, but it was just from the performance from the bowl game. But stepping into that season with them, they knew what I could do, and now that I had that experience, it was all systems go. There was no let off.
So what's different for you after you've put that on tape and after you've had that game where you feel like you really went full Superman and you ripped the shirt off? Like what does the next game feel like for you?
Because it's always when you come in, you always want to prove yourself. Damn, if I'm gonna be good enough, if I'm gonna be good enough to hang with everybody, if I'm gonna be able to make plays with everybody else that's making plays. And then when you have a performance where, I belong, it's especially when it's a hostile environment, with fans and everything, and you can handle that pressure. You eager to get out there again. I knew I was. That's why I said I was so amped going into the off season and throughout spring, because it's like I've shown that I belong. Like I'm not the weak link on the team. So when I come back out here, we all gonna be clicking and playing together again. So that was my main thing, just to show that one game wasn't a fluke.
Well, what's it like? And I know, players are going to say they prepare, for every team the same. And you would like that to be the case, but obviously that isn't all the time. What is it like when you're playing against a team that obviously you understand what kind of record they have, and it's not a good record, but it's a talented team, and you understand the pieces that you have? And I guess, how is that different from preparing for a team that has a bad record, and you probably know you can out-talent by a pretty wide margin?
Well, teams that you're better than, you could pretty out-talent them. We kind of look at those as stat games, kind of like to try new things, try to make a play here, make a play there that you may not like, because some teams you play, because some teams you play against, you like, if I go here and I miss, it's gonna be, you know what I'm saying?
Bad film study.
Exactly. But some teams you feel you could take more of a chance on. So absolutely. But again, when you're going against a peripheral powerhouse that's normally year in and year out, they're good. It doesn't matter their record. They still got the same level of talent on that team. They just not winning right now. But if you go out there sleeping on them, you could get embarrassed. So that's the main thing. I'm like, I don't care what their record is. That's still who that is. So we have to treat them as such. Like again, they took the number 5 team to the wire. They didn't. Miami didn't start pulling away until the fourth quarter. Yeah. So Florida State is still Florida State. They just, like you said, the little mental lapses they have here or there from time to time is costing them games. But I don't want to be the team they end up putting it all together against for sure. So I'm going to approach it the same way.
Look, the statute of limitations has expired, so it's okay to give a real answer here. You feel like y'all ever looked past a team based on what their record was, and then had them, maybe they were the ones that put it all together? Like, did you ever have that happen where you guys knew that maybe y'all were a little lax during practice?
Oh yeah, my senior year we was playing William and Mary, and it was homecoming.
Mike
we
Wallace.
like yes. I'm like dude, this. Man, it's homecoming. We got William and Mary. I forgot who we played the week before, but we just drilled them. So I'm like, yeah. And then when we come down to the wire with William and Mary, I was like, oh my God. You know what I'm saying? But we still ended up winning.
Right.
But it took
slept walk through the first half.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I was sitting there. For sure, I was out there like, how in the heck are they completing all these passes on us?
Like at halftime?
At halftime?
Yeah. It's because Butch was never really a rah-rah guy. So what was it like at halftime?
Well, he did. He was just like, all right, you see what happens when you come out here, He said, you keep it up, we're going to be disappointed when we come back in here. That's all he said,
to find out.
Right. So we was like, we started to get each other like, hey, man, we can't lose on homecoming. We dang sure can't lose the William and Mary on homecoming. So like, come on here, let's go. So yeah, we turned it back on. We turned it up in the second half and was able to come out of there with the win. But that first half, they was on us.
Who was your guy that y'all had, and it could have been from any of the teams you were on, college or pro, that was always that one guy that maybe the coach wasn't rah-rah, but he was the one that you knew was going to be throwing chairs in the locker room, was going to be mad at halftime no matter what happened, because that's where he felt like his spot was, right? He felt like he had to be the guy to light a fire, so he knew he was going to be demonstrative. Who was that guy?
Oh, man.
Don't say it was you, because that's not you.
No. Oh, no. For sure that's not me. Well, at college, didn't nobody really throw no chair. One guy threw a chair, but he threw a chair because he was mad he wasn't playing. But so that's different. But I don't know. I didn't really have. We didn't really. I mean, it was guys, of course. Like Alaric Mullins was the guy.
Al?
Big Al.
Really?
Big Al would bring everybody up on the sideline on defensive. He did what Cayman did a couple times. We was out
Just
there lacking days, rattled everybody
okay.
around and got on everybody. You know what I'm saying? But other than that, we really didn't need it in college. You know what I'm saying? Like, we had the type of guys that we knew what we needed to do. The NFL is not too many. I mean, you may have your older guys who know they get into the end of the line. They're like, come on now, I got to win something before I get up out of here. But, pretty much everybody wants to win anyway. We know you win, you keep getting paid. So, so yeah, I would say that.
I think that it's something for a lot of folks that didn't play to try to understand how small, and Staples used a minute ago the word variance, how small that line between coming out and having an amazing game, and then coming out and sleepwalking, or coming out and have a decent game, and then coming out and beating the brakes off of somebody is. I think people lose sight of just how one or two plays can really, really change that. And that's everything from you being, you setting up a yard off inside the hash, or maybe you don't jam a guy on the line of scrimmage, and how big of a difference that can make.
That's why you hear a lot of people say it's a game of inches. You could be 2 inches to the left when you're supposed to be to the right, and create a seam, because especially in the NFL, like,
because the receivers will see that.
Thank you. Everybody sees it. That's how much film study we do.
Yeah.
Like, I could after like 3-4 days of watching film, I know I could look at a receiver or a tight end and know when he's run a pass, depending on his mannerisms. So if you're a margin off here or there in the NFL game, it's slim to none. That's why it's hard to win in the NFL.
Yeah.
Like, so because there's so much that goes into it. College not so much you can get away with it here or there, because you may have a couple of freakish athletes on your team. You may have better players than the other team, so you could get away with it. But in the NFL, everybody's good. Everybody's great. Now, of course, you got your exceptional Hall of Famers, but everybody's good, even the backup in the NFL. Now he may not have that much experience as the guy in front of him, but everybody was the quote unquote best player at their spot. That's how they got to where they got.
What do you remember about winning in Tallahassee?
2010, they beat us. Well, first off, they beat us the year before in 09 on a Thursday night.
On Thursday night. That was the one where, what was it? Was it Charlie Brown fell down?
Yes. And we had him. I think we had him like
Christian Ponder beat him.
Yes. Oh my God. We had them 21-3 at half.
Yeah. It was not close at half.
And we was rolling. They came back and beat us. They came back and beat us 28-21. It was crazy. So then for the following year for us to go down there and then to go down there with a depleted roster. Because we went down there with probably 80% of our roster. And
everybody was hurt.
Either hurt or withheld or suspended.
That's right. I
you know
forgot
what I'm saying?
It was also during the suspension time, too.
Right. So we went down there with probably 6 of our 11 starters on defense. And then we were without Greg Little on offense. And we went down there and beat them 24-21, which was a close game. I still can't believe Dustin missed that field goal. That would have took us into overtime because
he absolutely pulled that too. Like it wasn't even close.
And what is crazy is the next week against Clemson, he kicked that 60-yarder to win it and walk it off. I'm sitting there like, oh my God! Like, but he missed a 23-yard against us.
Chip shot, yeah.
So man, you never know. But we came out of there with the win. I know that was one of the best rides back.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's something that every player on every level remembers going into somebody's house, to use a Roy Williamsism. Go in somebody's house and taking their cookies. Right. Or taking their brownies.
And when he missed it, we was like, oh, it's over. You know what I'm saying? Like, how did he miss that? Then, like,
was that the one I think I saw Quan, like he had his helmet, he was running around like he was flying?
Yeah.
Might have been. Anyway.
Kendrick and Bruce ran almost the entire length of the field all the way to the other side, other end zone, celebrating. I know I got to the sideline and threw my helmet off. It was like, what? We just came in here in the dope and beat Florida State.
Yeah. Well, I think it's going to be crazy to see how little their fan base shows up for this game today, because North Carolina's not bringing in any headlines, and they have not gotten the results they want on the field this year. All right, we'll be right back. We're going to do our IC Takeover segment next. If you have listened to this show before, first off, we're glad you're back. But second off, you know the routine. Next segment, we take questions from the audience, whether you're watching us on YouTube, whether you're listening on terrestrial radio at 97.9 The Hill, or if you're listening at chapelboro.com. Any of those ways you can interact with the show. If you're in the YouTube channel, drop some questions in the chat. Or if you want to interact with us on Twitter at Inside Carolina, Evan will take some questions, or you can hit them on the show thread on the Inside Carolina Premium Message Boards. But Evan's going to take some questions next segment, throw them to us, and he'll pick the best one. We'll get a $50 gift card from our friends over at Johnny T-Shirt. You can't go wrong with that. Stick around after the break. You're listening to Inside Carolina Live on 97.9 The Hill, WCHL.
This is Anthony Elzey, and you're listening to Inside Carolina Live. Go ahead.
Here at Bold Commercial Real Estate, we help you find the perfect spot and negotiate great lease terms for your new business. But we don't stop there. I'm Lou, the Bold team member who has owned and operated restaurants and retail businesses for more than a decade. I can help with the details specific to this industry, ranging from ABC permits to hiring staff and everything in between. So get in touch with us. Go to boldcre.com.
Hello, Tar Heels. This is Roy Williams. Although we are no longer living in town, when Wanda and I come back, we always stay at the new Sheraton Chapel Hill. The Atma Hotel Group has done wonders with the Sheraton's complete and comfortable transformation and amenities, from convenient parking to very nice guest rooms and the Blue Corners Bistro that serves breakfast and dinner every day. We hope to see you there on one of those special Carolina weekends. And as always, let's go Heels.
Hey Jack. Hey Lee. Here at Alma's Jewelers, things are beginning to feel like fall. I'm particularly excited about our new fashion line by Noam Carver called Ray.
I love that line. It has the elegance we know from their bridal jewelry with a contemporary, delicate style.
It's been very popular and makes a wonderful gift.
Good point, Illy. It's not too early to start thinking about holiday gift giving.
Oma's Jewelers in Eastgate Crossing is the place for the most beautiful gifts in Chapel Hill. Oma's Jewelers. The name means diamonds. Let's engage. Online at omasjewelers.com.
Hello, friends. This is Mark Pons with Chapel Hill Tire, and I have big news. Our biggest, bestest, hugest Michelin sale ever is being extended to November 6th. Save up to $180 when you purchase 4 new Michelin tires. Go to promotions.chapelhilltire.com for full details of the extended, biggest, bestest, hugest Michelin sale ever. If you are thinking you might need new tires, now is the time to drive happy, Chapel Hill.
Hey Tar Heels, my name is Adam Bishop, the senior pastor at New Hope Church in Durham. I'm a big Tar Heel fan, a husband, a father to 3 amazing boys, and I believe deeply in building bridges to create community. At New Hope Church, you're welcomed with big smiles and hellos by people who are genuinely excited to see you. We're a diverse faith community sharing hope in Central North Carolina for more than 20 years. If you're looking for a church home, we'd love to meet you this coming Sunday. Visit our website, newhopechurch.org, to learn more, as well as to stay up to date on events and how we're serving our local communities. We can't wait to meet you, and God bless our Tar Heels.
This is Dwight Schrute, assistant to the regional manager. Listen, I have a specific philosophy when it comes to my financial planning. When I'm about to do something, I think, would an idiot do that? And if they would, I do not do that thing. And if that's not enough and I still need additional help with my financial decision making, I call John Stillman at Rosewood Wealth Management. Online at meetwithjohn.com.
Dwight Schrute isn't real and therefore wasn't compensated for this endorsement. However, Carolina Wealth Stewards doing business as Rosewood Wealth Management is a real registered investment advisor in the state of North Carolina.
You're listening to Inside Carolina Live on 97.9 The Hill, WCHL, the flagship station for Tar Heel sports. And now the hosts of Inside Carolina Live, Joey Powell and Noles Searcy.
I'm mad. Get down with my girlfriend.
Just let that run. Evan, you know who this is?
Yes.
Who is it? You're a
Can
liar.
I phone a friend?
You're a
Can
liar.
you phone a friend? You got to phone a friend?
I hope you ain't got no friends after that. My
Evan.
God, man.
Evan.
I just, who are you?
He's part of the reason we have MJ. You understand that? And I ain't talking about Michael Jordan.
He doesn't know who that is.
Michael Jackson.
He doesn't know who that is.
He is part of the reason we had, he's part of the reason we got Thriller.
He made Thriller. So that was the Godfather of Soul, James Brown.
James Brown.
And I'm going to assume you can't call a friend because your friends have not been
Your
very
friend like,
friendly
don't call
to you.
me.
Your friends are not friends to you if
Yeah,
they do
they're
not.
like-
If you don't know who James Brown is,
Your friends are like, don't get me
Don't
involved
call
in this.
me.
Yeah, don't get me involved in this.
that's one of the most iconic bass lines in the history of all of music, and you lied about it too.
Just to scream alone that hey, everybody knows that.
Erroneous.
Hey,
You're
Evan,
so
just so
full
we're
of
just so we're
falsehoods.
clear, we're not angry. We're just upset.
Disappointed.
No, I'm
Just
disappointed. Yeah.
Disappointed.
Just disappointed.
Yeah, we're just upset and disappointed.
Evan, you have a chance to redeem yourself, but it's not going to be today. So,
sure
in the
ain't.
meantime, can you please ask us some questions so that we forget just what a huge disappointment you are? Please.
Yeah, keep the the questions coming in the comments while I roll through these.
It'll save Evan's life if you ask more questions right now. I promise.
I'm gonna start it off with Eric. I think Roost. Apologize if I'm mispronouncing that last name, but he asked about the tackles, the edges for North Carolina, how they might fare or not fare against the edge rushers that Florida State has. Obviously, we've talked about at length now how that's the strength of the Florida State team and the Florida State defense. I guess how comfortable or confident I think you have seen, especially Howard Sampson probably take some steps in pass pro over the last couple of weeks. Trey Green might still be a couple steps behind, but I guess what do you kind of expect to see from them today?
If I'm those tackles, I got a chance to get paid today because if I can handle those guys off the edges, that raises my value for sure. So I want them to. I for sure want them to hold up, especially coming off a chance where they had coming off the bye week before the UVA game where they had a chance to rest and get better. Then they showed it in the UVA game, but now they should be aware like this week is not UVA, so we have some again. Like you got to. I mean, I hate to say it, play up to your level of competition, but you like that team. That spear brings aura. So if I'm going against somebody on Florida State, not to knock UVA because everybody has a chance in the Division I to be great. You know what I'm saying? But that's that a program that's known for defensive players. I know I'm gonna have my work cut out for me, but I want to go out there and prove that I can hold my own and I can handle myself. You know what I'm saying? I know me as a player, I know that'll look good. It'll look good to keep my quarterback up when they give us a chance to win. So I really do. I hope they realize the challenge and the opportunity, and I hope they answer the bell.
I don't. I think there's probably the opportunity. I hope that nobody. Again, I said earlier in the show, and I'm not trying to lean too much on this answer, but I really believe this in my soul. Nobody on this North Carolina roster can afford to overlook anybody. Mm-hmm. Nobody on this North Carolina roster cannot have, can afford to assume anything, because we've seen things like James Madison happen, and it wasn't too long ago. Next question, sir.
AJ mentioned it during the break. I can't find the comment, so I can't credit the person, but he was talking about jumping out to a fast start and essentially making Florida State kind of get in this clocked out, here we go again, kind of a mode or zone. I went and looked during the break. Do you guys know the last time UNC had a opening drive touchdown start again? In their first drive.
In their first drive?
The first drive of the game.
Last year?
It was against Georgia Tech last year, wasn't it?
I didn't even go back last year. There were none this year.
Yeah.
So they haven't done it this year.
Yeah. Well, I know it's been done this year. We ain't seen it. We've been watching every game.
It was Sean Crowley.
Sean Crowley, awesome.
He said, score early, make FSU uninterested.
Perfect.
He also attempted to help you during the James Brown thing by saying, Evan, here's a hint. He plays on the hoops team now.
That would have been a good hint.
I thought about it, but you didn't deserve a hint.
Shout out to Sean. He is an inside Carolina legend.
After you're a liar, you didn't deserve a hint.
Yeah, because you sure said, yeah, of course I know who this is.
Of course I know who this is. And he had attitude about it.
Then he paused well, can I call a friend?
I mean, admittedly, Sean also said, Evan, don't let anyone pick on you. You do good work. So his opinion is now invalid.
Well, you do
great. If I have one fan in the world, it's Sean Crowley, so that makes me feel really good about myself.
Yeah. You just gotta brush yourself up on your music history.
The work part you're good at. It's everything else that we have issue with.
That's right. And you've also been given a job of look up George Clinton and be ready to give us a report.
All right, back to the real
back
questions.
to the regular scheduled program. I guess what do you need to see from this offense to start fast, or how important or how big would it for this offense to score a touchdown on that first drive? I mean, I feel like that would be something that could really shift just the whole game in its entirety.
Right, that'll be a great tone setter for a game. Especially, we coming off one of our strongest performances last week. We're going against another team that's been struggling like us. So, what better way to come out with even more confidence to just take the ball and drive it down the field on that first series? It shows that we can't. It shows that you came ready to play. It shows that we don't care about them spears on your helmet. We coming in here trying to get a win. We hate that your record the way it is. We want to make our record better. So yeah, I would say that'll be a great tone setter, especially since we haven't done it this year, and if we could do it against this team today, that'll be good.
I think it's less about today and more about reigniting those feelings that they probably had last week, right? So I think it's one of those where you have a team that hasn't had a ton of extended or continued success like North Carolina football has. When you have that chance to get back into that comfortable blanket or that comfortable pair of pants or whatever you want to call it, that last week may have shown you. I think you got to do that because again, you saw what happened when things were clicking for them last week. They played a lot freer. They're just playing ball. They're not thinking. They're not overthinking. They're not. It just that cures a lot of things. You always hear coaches say winning solves a lot of problems, but I think just going out and executing early in the game today could get them back in that spot that they felt last week, and we saw how liberating that was for this team. So I want to see them score early just to get them back in that mindset and less about just getting ahead on the scoreboard.
Right. I looked
that could be good too. Yeah.
I went back to last year. So it was the Duke game, the double overtime Duke game last season.
Wow.
Last time. So that was November 12th, 2023. So it's been 355 days.
That was another game that they were up significantly early and then
I was at that game.
Back their way into it.
It was,
and it's something we haven't really talked about the Florida State offense in terms of their numbers, but they've scored over 16 points one time this whole season.
Yeah.
So 7 points to this kind of team. It's like you're playing UVA in basketball almost.
Absolutely.
When you were down 5 to Tony Bennett's UVA team, you felt like you were down 25.
I want to say this now, and Greg or Jason, forgive me if I get it wrong, but one of those guys said in the game plan Thursday that it's a race to 24.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's wrong. I mean, when you consider the struggles that now, as soon as I say that, Florida State will come out today with their hair on fire. But when you see Florida State's offense, if they are put under pressure because they're chasing points, I think it causes them to probably crumble a little bit more. But no, all of those things that you point out, I think are certainly worth watching as the game's kicked off later.
All right, Brian Evans talked about, Florida State stacks the box, put 6 in the box. They're trying to focus in on Hampton. Are you guys confident in the UNC receivers to get open against the Florida State secondary that, like Jason had mentioned, they've got some playmakers there in the secondary? Mm-hmm. Cypress is a really good player, the transfer from UVA, who's in his second year there. I know the other cornerback is on one mock draft, I think a projected first rounder, if I'm not mistaken. So they've got talented dudes in that back end. I guess, what is your kind of confidence level with those UNC receivers?
I'm going to take this one first, and it's not necessarily that I think the receivers will have a better day. I think it'll force Criswell to throw some shorter stuff, and he's seen more effective when he's able to do that. You saw the screens last week working. You saw the game before that Nate McCollum was finally starting to eat a little bit. But what I would like about that is it allows Criswell to run the ball, right? So if they're loading the box and keying on Hampton, and then all of a sudden you got every defensive back turned the other way,
right?
That'll allow Criswell, if he's able to read that, allow him to use some of his own legs and kind of help himself a little bit.
Right, absolutely. I agree with that as well, especially. But I would like to see these receivers have a good day against these DBs. We got to get the tight ends involved as well as too. If it comes to a point where they're having a hard time creating separation and getting open, we'll take advantage of some of those matchups with our tight ends. Our tight ends do a good job of getting open and making plays as well. So I mean, we have plenty of playmakers to get involved.
You just got to make plays.
You got to make plays, right? Yeah, you got to make plays, and then you got to be up for the task. Like if I'm a receiver and I'm going against a projected first rounder, like I got to be like kind of frightened at the mouth. I got to go against him. But that's just me as a competitor. You know what I'm saying? They praising you. Well, then we finna see today. You know what I'm saying? I got to see what the hype is about. You know, and if I do good against you, then what that makes me. So. You got to take pride in that, you know. That's why I made that same comment about the tackles. Like,
win your one-on-ones.
Thank you. Yeah,
like
you got to
win
your individual battles.
Yeah, that's real.
Another good one from Brian Evans talking about the special teams, and I feel like in a game that you expect to potentially be low scoring, special teams can be huge, and Florida State has actually graded out really well in special teams. I think Greg Barnes had the stat. The ESPN SP Plus actually has Florida State as the top ranked special teams unit in the country. I know they had a they had a kickoff return for a touchdown against Duke. But then on the flip side, the funny thing is that Florida State's total punt return yardage on the season is actually negative. It's -7.
That's crazy.
I mean, so that tells me a couple things. That tells me that their punt returner is not making good choices.
Yeah.
Right.
But that also scares me because North Carolina has not covered kicks well.
No.
I mean, it's that could be a potential place for, you always hear special teams being hidden yardage. That could be a place that could be a real slippery slope for North Carolina today. I hadn't thought about it. Good question.
And also with the punting game, we've seen UNC switch from the traditional shell to the max protect when they were having the block issues. Even still, with McGinnis, he doesn't get much hang time on those punts.
No,
not
at all.
It's a line driver, so that's where your worries about the cover. I mean, remember the first punt against UVA? It was a 20-yard punt return, and UVA is in plus territory, and you're like, okay, UVA is going to score a touchdown, and the dominoes are going to keep falling. Special teams, they're so easy to ignore, and also hard to ignore at the same time when they're such a big part of the game.
What's the old adage that coaches always like to say, though? You between referees and special teams, you like to not talk about them.
Absolutely.
If you haven't talked about them or haven't heard about them through the course of the game, that means they likely did their jobs fairly well or to at least a manageable level. Right. The last thing we need to be talking about if it's Tommy and Buck and Jason on the day after on Sunday and they're talking about special teams, I'm going to go ahead and say that the game did not go well for North Carolina.
But on the flip side of that, the last couple times Carolina has won in Tallahassee came down to special teams. The 2010 when I was there, missed field goal.
You missed Hopkins and then also Nick
Weiler. And then Then we made a field goal to win down there against them when Fedora was here. So you never know.
Let me see.
There was a question on the Twitter machine if you'd like me to pluck that one.
Pluck that one.
So Alan Mitten, who is at Top Gun 1789. Do you know what 1789 means for North Carolina, Evan?
17. Oh, it was.
You're there.
Was that?
Yeah, come on.
For North Carolina?
Yeah.
Or for the U.S.? No, that's something else. 1789, was that the year the university was founded? I don't know.
Okay. We're gonna.
What's 1789 mean?
What player on offense needs to step up today?
What does it mean?
What player on offense needs to step up today to help lead UNC to victory? Denoris, I'll let you take that one first.
You got to give him a minute.
I can take it.
Okay, I'm good. I want to see Nate. I want to see Nate come out and catch some of them jailbreaks and take them to the house, man. Have another productive day. And the reason I say Nate because I know like guys like JJ, they all gonna be working on the outside, so you never know what those matchups gonna be.
I was gonna say that slot matchup huge for them.
That's why I said Nate, and I also mentioned the tight ends as well, Nesbitt and Copenhagen. But I want to see Nate have a big day.
Well, Nesbitt's out, so he's going to be out for a good while. I think.
Got you. So Nate,
Copenhagen did a great job of making catches in traffic last week, and that's kind of the flip side. Like if you've got a matchup with speed, it's going to be Nate against a larger linebacker. But if you want to match up with some size, then you're going to have Copenhagen to flip that a little bit. So both of those will be a way to exploit the middle of the field should they choose to do so. Evan?
I think you got to go back to J.J. Jones. I think you saw last week what it looked like when this UNC offense had a number one receiver.
That's his first multiple touchdown game since he's been here.
Yeah,
which was made me just knowing the quarterbacks they've had like absolutely just boggled my mind to read that.
But you also got to think of the guys J.J. was playing with too while he was here.
That's true.
Yeah,
and I know that J.J. There's something funny where sometimes. And I think JJ is a really good player. I wouldn't classify him in this elite category of receiver that maybe UNC has had in the past in terms of your number one guys. So like a Josh Downs, Tez Walker, like NFL guys. But JJ Jones is really good at a lot of things. And sometimes all it takes is a chemistry between a quarterback and a receiver to really elevate that receiver's game. You kind of saw it with Kobe Pacer early on in his career.
He's just getting that with Criswell.
And he's getting that with Criswell. And they actually go back a pretty good ways. I mean, I know JJ and Criswell – obviously, when Jacoby was here first time around, and it was blue team stuff, or white team. Which one's first?
Just keep going. We got You're on. Let him go. He's on a roll. Go ahead.
They built that chemistry over time, and I know of talking to JJ, he and Jacoby actually have outside of football a pretty close connection personally, and I think that's something you've seen kind of play out onto the field, and you've missed that from this team. It's always been a question of who is that top receiver. Some weeks it was Nesbitt before he got hurt.
Yeah.
1 week it was McCullum. 1 week it was JJ. I think if you can finally get that number one guy to take those reins, it can really change this offense.
Well, and the coaches said last week that they were trying to work Jordan Shipp into more of a predominant role in the offense. We didn't see that. I think he had one target early and dropped it.
Gotcha.
You got Christian Hamilton back from injury last week, so it'll be interesting to see where they go. They'll definitely have a full complement of guys, save for Nesbitt, right? Like they should have some options to do that today. And going back to what we said with Staples is, I feel like this should be a ground and pound type game, and it shouldn't be a run game. It shouldn't be a throw the ball a lot game. I think this should be a ground and pound. And if you need to take some of that pressure off the box and get your guys outside, and that's where I think you can use Goss. I think you can. Do we actually see Darwin Barlow today for a change? He was declared healthy last week, and I don't know that he took any snaps. So you can use guys outside and still run the ball to help when they do bring extra down to the box. It's just going to be interesting to see how North Carolina chooses to execute against that. All right. I will let Evan, if he can find a way not to mess it up during the break, I will let him pick who the winner is to get the $50 from Johnny T-shirt. But I'm going to go ahead and tell y'all, UNC tips the ball off against Elon Monday night, first regular season game of the year. If you're coming up for a game Monday night, first off, make sure you're listening to your pregame. And if you're not at the game, you can listen to it on 97.9 The Hill. But if you're in town, go buy Johnny T-shirt. Get you some new gear. If you're coming in town for the Wake Forest game, that's the next home football game, go buy Johnny T-shirt. Premium subscribers to Inside Carolina Notes, you get an extra 10% off the top. We love Johnny T. Love that they support all of what Inside Carolina does. We want you guys to support them as well. Give Johnny T some love at JohnnyTshirt.com. All right, take a break. We're going to be right back. Evan, hopefully we'll pick a winner. We'll announce that in the next segment. We'll put a bow on the show before we hand it over to the Tar Heel Radio Network at 2:30. You're listening to Inside Carolina Live on 97.9 The Hill, WCHL.
I'm Shimon Williams, and you're listening to Inside Carolina Live.
Hello, friends. This is Mark Pons with Chapel Hill Tire, and I have big news. Our biggest, bestest, hugest Michelin sale ever is being extended to November 6th. Save up to $180 when you purchase 4 new Michelin tires. Go to promotions.chapelhilltire.com for full details of the extended, biggest, bestest, hugest Michelin sale ever. If you are thinking you might need new tires, now is the time to drive happy, Chapel Hill.
My name is Katherine Hauser, and I now live in a beautiful home, fully renovated by Will Johnson Building Company, and we couldn't be happier. I have nothing but wonderful things to say about our project manager who was on the job site, and that's Mike Blankenship. What a wonderful gem. I think he also feels like he's part of the Will Johnson family. All of their employees feel like they're a part of that family, and they all work like family. We loved feeling like we were treated like family.
Go to willjohnsonbuildingcompany.com and see for yourself.
This is Hubert Davis, head coach of the Tar Heels. The new Sheraton Chapel Hill has been completely renovated with all the amenities you need to fully enjoy your time here. So don't forget to make reservations for you, your family, and friends at the new Sheraton Chapel Hill, where so many Tar Heel alumni and fans stay for home games and other special visits. Go to SheratonChapelHill.com for our home games and your other reasons to be in Chapel Hill. Thank you, and go Heels.
I'm Jeremy Salemson with CIMG Residential Mortgage. There are optimistic signs and trends in housing these days, so you may be asking, is this the right time to buy or sell, and what can I afford? Well, we're here to help you buy or refinance your home with an experienced team, creative solutions, personalized service, and efficient systems. Contact us at CIMGINC.com and see firsthand the advantages of lending on a first-name basis. NMLS number 39460.
Dana Wicker Cantrell of Caldwell Banker, Howard Perry and Walston won't rep a buyer and seller in the same transaction.
My job is to make sure the person I'm working for gets the best advice. And if I become a neutral person in between these two parties, I'm not actually doing my job. My job is to make sure that the people are taken care of.
For more information, go to danacantrellrealty.com.
This is Jeff Denny with Generator Supercenter of the Triangle. We are the #1 Generac residential installer in North America. I really stress with the customers that we are looking to be their generator partner for the next 10, 15, 20 years for their ownership of having a generator. We want to make sure they can rely on us that that generator is ready to run and on go when they need it. Go to GeneratorSupercenterOfTheTriangle.com. That's GeneratorSupercenterOfTheTriangle.com.
Are you working? What kind of work do you do?
You're listening to Inside Carolina Live on 97.9 The Hill, WCHL, the flagship station for Tar Heel sports. And now the hosts of Inside Carolina Live, Joey Powell and Denoris Searcy.
Waiting for your next mistake. I put in work and watch my status escalate. Now I'ma start collecting props, connecting plots now.
Gangstar, RIP to Guru. We are going to land the show here. Inside Carolina Live. Coming down the stretch here, we've got just a few more minutes with you before we let Jones and the guys over at the Tar Heel Radio Network take over. We appreciate you making us a part of your pregame routine. It's always fun to talk a little ball on a Saturday. Tar Heels at Tallahassee, 3:30 today on the ACC Radio Network. So, guys, I am long enough following this program to never take anything for granted. We mentioned that multiple times during the show that, nobody on this roster can take anyone for granted. And definitely, I think the fans are kind of the same way. So most important thing, this is usually where we go this time of the show. Searcy, I ask you first, what's the most important thing? And I'm going to make you play left-handed. I'm taking away the turnovers. Because I know that's always turnovers is your go-to, so I'm taking that away.
You see what happens when we get them.
I've been watching tape on you, and I know that you're going to go turnovers, so I'm taking turnovers away.
If Jahvaree Ritzie gets a pick six every game from here on out, I think UNC will win.
That's a bold prediction.
I'm going to be
that's
honest.
a bold prediction.
When I saw the highlights last week that Jahvaree Ritzie got a pick six, my first immediate thought was, I bet Norris was losing his mind.
I'm like, yes. And that was the first time a big man scored since I was here.
I made a straight up said fat man touchdown, and I can say that because
I'm like, the last time we had a big man score on the pick six, I was here. My team, Marvin Austin. You know what I'm saying? Like that was
all kinds of hilarious.
Right. I was like, because he stumbled.
I was like, DeNorris didn't even just get a pick six; he got a thick six.
Big get a big man score, man.
Ritzy didn't look bad doing it. You know, a lot of times, like you talked about Marvin was on the struggle bus when he got to those last 5 yards, but Ritzy looked fine doing it. Like, just looked like a dude in a big shirt.
Yeah, man.
Well, it's good to know that if they need a backup safety, they got Ritzy on the roster already.
Yeah. Let's just go single high with Jabari back there. We'll make that work.
Ball hawking, baby.
Things to watch for. I just want the offense to remain consistent. I don't want what we seen last week to be a fluke. Well, I hope with that dominant performance by our O-line, especially them being back together, their confidence will grow and we'll be able to handle Florida State front four today. So that's what I'm what to watch for. Offensive line dominance.
Evan, same question, man. I mean, we've talked about UNC's O-line kind of finding some rhythm. I think Searcy is onto something. I'm going to ask you the same thing. What's your most important facet of the game today if North Carolina wants to execute at a high level?
I want to see Cayman Rucker take advantage of those tackles for Florida State. This is an offensive line in Florida State that has struggled giving up pressures. I think it's, as Jason mentioned on the game plan, I think it's north of 44% of dropbacks are they allowing pressures. So that's something this team can take advantage of. And it would be nice to see a 10-sack game not be a fluke in a sense of, obviously they're not going to get 10 sacks a game, but I want to see that pressure carry over. I mean, I think you saw at the start of last year. It was 9 sacks against South Carolina. Everyone was like, we got the 85 Bears. Here comes this UNC defense. Like, oh, my gosh.
And then the next week happened.
And you saw what happened.
Oh, Lord, yeah.
So I think just that consistent from week to week, showing that you can get pressure to the quarterback, especially exploiting weak offensive lines, which they're going to have this week like they had last week, it could bode really well for this defense.
Yeah, I would love to see, and specifically, I'd love to see more of that. A little bit of some twist game stuff, maybe some stems before the ball is snapped, because I think that was also helpful for North Carolina to be able to get Virginia confused. Again, I don't know how hard it's going to be to do that with Florida State this week, but absolutely whatever it takes for you to get some pressure in the backfield, I think is a big win. The biggest, most important thing for me this week is can North Carolina effectively run the ball? I mean, I think that we've identified that that's the biggest weakness that Florida State has, and if North Carolina can exploit that the way everybody expects them to, that's one of the biggest things is when somebody knows what you want to do and you're able to do that, right? Exactly. You're exerting your will. They know this is what I'm going to try to do, and you still go in and do it effectively anyway. That's something that will give this team some confidence. And also, I think the fan base has been looking to see something like that, where what North Carolina's going to try to do. They do it well, and you can't stop it. I think that would be a big achievement for this team this late in the season. If you so care about these things, and now that it's legal in the state of North Carolina, Tar Heels are favored by 2.5. Your total's looking at about 50.5, 51, depending on what you're looking at. I think that feels about right. I don't think there's going to be any blowouts one way or another. But I do think this may be a situation where you're seeing a ton of carries for UNC, and it doesn't all have to go to Armarian Hampton, but if he's getting 6 to 8 yards a clip, then feed the big man. Yeah. What does a recipe for a win look like? I always ask Staples, what's the game plan here? And I think he was pretty concise in saying that it needs to be pretty vanilla. But I'm going to ask you, Evan, is there a certain thing that North Carolina can do schematically that ensures that they win?
I think, like you just said, the harping on running between those B and A gaps, running in between the tackles, and doing that effectively, because that plays into the strength of that Florida State defense. So if you can beat their strength, that can really just take a whole team down.
Oh yeah,
and that's something that UNC has been pretty successful at. I think if you look at Amarian's rushing numbers this year, north of 70% are not only in between the tackles but after contact. I mean, that's stupid. Yeah, that's stupid. I mean, it's ridiculous.
What was the stat? North Carolina leads the ACC in yards after contact or no, wait, I'm sorry. North Carolina gives up on defense. They give up, so other side of the ball. North Carolina gives up the most yards before contact and the least amount of yards after contact.
Oh, wow.
So it's like I say, hey, we may not get there very quickly, but when we get there, we're going to bring it down.
Right.
Hey, you're not having problems tackling.
Right.
So, that's a plus.
Baby steps, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Evan.
But yeah, but I think once if you establish that, you can really build that out into the play action game and stretching the field. And then again, if you have success offensively against this Florida State defense, it's the race to 24. It's not, an old UNC game where I think you're going to need, like those old, like a Wake Forest UNC game 2 or 3 years ago where it's
you
like
need 50 to have a
55
chance.
to 52.
Yeah.
Like I'm willing to put a good bit of money that is not going to be the case today. So I think if you can just start there and build out from there, I think you should have some pretty good success today.
Sir, same question, man. What do you feel like schematically is North Carolina's answer or is going to be their recipe?
Run game, play action. Take advantage especially if we're eating up yards on the run, then of course they're gonna try to make adjustments to stop it. So that's when the play action gonna come in behind, especially if with Florida State running a lot of 7 coverages and you get those safeties to bite up, and then you leave those guys on the outside on the island. You can take advantage of the passing game and take advantage of mismatches for sure. And then for us on defense, just putting pressure on the quarterback. Our DBs may have they work cut out for them today, but it will help. It will help them a long way if we could get pressure on the quarterback and get the ball out quick. That way, guys are not out here running around with guys who run 10-4s and hundreds and stuff. Because if it's right, exactly. If you turn it into a track meet, we may be in trouble. So yeah, I would say our pressure that we could put on the quarterback to disrupt the time in and get the ball out of his hands. If he can't get the ball out of his hands, then we get sacks and force turnovers.
If Florida State's strength on defense is on the outside, I need to see some Copenhagen seam routes.
Absolutely.
Just over and over.
Absolutely.
And again, if it's hitting, go back to it. If you need to, run a little bit of, maybe run some 12 personnel and have where you can go to Cope or Jake Johnson. You've got dual seams on either side of the ball. I think that if the outside is going to present a problem, then absolutely beat the middle of the field up. Just do what you've got to do. Even if it's you can run some orbit motion and get some things where you've got Hampton or Goss or Darwin Barless sitting down just beyond the defensive line of scrimmage. I mean, just seeing things where you can exploit that middle and force them to not lock down so much on the outside, and that might give your receivers a little bit of help. So who's the guy? Right? Like I know we had a question earlier. We got about 3 minutes left before we got to get out of here. One name today, Evan.
I'm trying to be unique. I don't want to go with like a basic name. You know what? I think this could be a good time for Christian Hamilton to kind of get back into the mix of things. I think before he got injured, he was probably the top receiver. Maybe
he was getting targets anyway.
You could make an argument he was in that realm of things. And obviously I think it looked like a pretty nasty ankle sprain. But he played last week, second week back. Would be good to see him to get some catches and maybe even find the end zone.
All right, sirs. Who's your guy?
Amari Campbell. He's been playing solid all year.
Really has.
He had a sack last week against UVA as well.
And that was perfect form tackling too, by the way.
Yes. So I'm gonna go Amari Campbell. I'm looking for him to continue to get better, which he's shown every game. He's getting more confidence now that he doesn't have to wear that big old club on his hand. Because he was making plays with the club, so it's just like now it's just he has the use of both, so he's been even more better since he's took that cast off. But I'm looking for him to continue to get better and continue to be a guy that steps up for next year. I mean, I know I'm looking ahead, but he's want to be one of those guys that's coming back and can be able to rally, keep the team together and keep guys rallied for sure.
I'm actually going to go the guy that stands next to Mr. Thick Pick 6, Kevin Hester. I think Kevin Hester has quietly had some really good performances recently. He and Jacoby Cowan have both really solidified their positions and have become a situation where defensive lines have to double them, have to chip them, and that's also going to open up some things on the outside.
Yes.
We talked about earlier about Ruck's ability to create havoc and the fact that Ruck being back makes it tougher for the other team's tackles to be able to play straight up. I think if you've got guys that are able to eat up double teams in the middle or force Florida State to actually concentrate on them like Hester's been able to do quietly. He's never going to be a stat guy because of the position he plays, but he absolutely can command the line of scrimmage and allow North Carolina to blow teams off the ball. Guys, we got less than a minute left. Give me a score.
23-14 UNC. That's a 9-point win.
So there's no 24.
No
race
24.
All right.
And the reason why I chose a 9-point win real quick is I was looking at StubHub, and about 2 minutes ago, you could get tickets for $9 each to this game.
All right. Fair
there
enough.
you go.
I like give me a score.
I like that. 24-14 Carolina.
So you think it's going to be a race of 24?
Yeah.
I tell you what, give me Tar Heels 31-21 today. I think they cover the spread. I liked them last week against Virginia. They showed out for me, so maybe they won't make an ass of daddy today. Boys, we appreciate y'all being a part of the show. Thank you, Evan. Thank you to Norris. Thank you to Jason Staples for making time for us on a Saturday. Shout out to everybody who was in the chat for us. Alan Minton was our winner of the Johnny T-shirt gift card. We certainly thank Johnny T-shirt for their support and their sponsorship, and to AJ for kind of reining us in when we abuse Evan a little too much for his lack of knowledge in general things.
Just remember, you do good work.
Yes, you do good work. Yeah. All right, we'll be back, not next week because the Heels are off, but as soon as they announce a kick time for Wake Forest, we'll be on 3 hours before that. Until next time, I'm Joey Powell. This has been Inside Carolina Live on 97.9 The Hill, WCHL.
It's time for the Chapel Hill Tire Drive Happy Drive of the Game. In a huge win against Virginia, Amarian Hampton became the 9th Tar Heel